get to in a second. I just want to take a moment. We've had some changes in our legal representation, and they're changes for the good. Dan, if you'd come on up here. Dan Krob, our assistant city attorney, is going to go be the city attorney for, and I might mess this up, Grand Lake and Dillon? Granby.
Granby and Larkspur.
So I just wanted to, I asked Dan to come tonight. This will be Dan's last meeting as working for the city of Evans. So I just wanted to bring Dan in and tell him on behalf of the citizens of Evans, thank you so much for everything you've done. You've always been professional. You've been really, really good at what you do. You're a great person to be around. You've taught us all a lot. And the city is in a much better place that we had you for the last couple of years. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the citizens of Evans. So if you'd like to say anything. Or...
Yeah, I just thought it was important to thank you, Mayor, for that, and Council. It's been great working with you guys. It's been great working with staff. Evans has got me a lot of great experience, and fortunately for me, I got an opportunity to move on and kind of further my career, so I really am appreciative of everything that you've done for me, and it's heading in a really positive direction, especially with your leadership, so wish you nothing but the best.
Well, you're leaving the city in a much better position it was in, so thank you for everything you did. We are
Thank
very
you.
fortunate.
Appreciate it.
Very
Thank you.
fortunate to have you.
Good luck to you.
Everyone plays a small part in the big picture, and thank you for your part. And I'm happy for you. It's bittersweet, you know, but thank you again, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Good luck at hockey tonight. Thanks for sticking. All right, next item on the agenda is the neighborhood services staffing considerations, and we'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. This is part 2 of a code enforcement discussion that we started a couple months ago, where Kyle Fair and Randy Reedy came in, I think, and gave you kind of an update on code enforcement work that had been happening on the, I think, almost 1,000, I don't know if I have the number right, but cases from about annually, 1,000, yep. And also, I want to just also remind council that I believe we have about an 83% voluntary compliance rate on the cases that we have, and essentially that's been done with Kyle and a seasonal, which is a ton of work, and it's made an impact for us. But the impact we're wanting to shift the focus tonight to the work that we're not able to get to. I know I've heard interest from council and how we can get more done. So we want to talk tonight about what some of that other work that we're not getting to is, and how we might be able to get more of it done. And I think relatively small cost to our general fund when you look at it from a net revenue standpoint. So with that, I'll turn it over to Randy and to Kyle to present more of the information and what we'd like to bring back to you as part of the budget for next year. Gentlemen.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Kyle Fair. I'm the code enforcement officer for the city of Evans. I've been here since June of 2013. I just want to present you tonight some of the departmental changes I've seen over the time, some of the demands for code enforcement, and where I believe the future of the department is headed. Currently, a little bit of the 2018 annual report review. We are still operating under one full-time code enforcement officer and one seasonal code enforcement officer, and we do have funding to have that seasonal for 40 hours a week for, I think, 6 months is what we plan for with that. Last year we issued a total of 290 citations and a total of 1,100 violations addressed. Not 290 of those 1,100 cases receive citations. Many cases who don't comply receive multiple citations until they do comply. So I would say from those numbers, we probably even a little bit higher voluntary compliance rate than Jim mentioned there as well. And then at the end of that report, we did mention to you some potential neighborhood services programs that we believe with a little additional capacity we might be able to bring to the department as well. Some of the departmental history for neighborhood services since I've been here. In 2013, when I started, neighborhood or code enforcement had just shifted from the police department to community development, and the animal control portion of the job was left with the police department. We did not have an animal control officer specifically at that time. Police officers were handling that role, and code enforcement was operating under the building and neighborhood services manager from 2013 to 2016. Later did hire a community service technician under the police department who was filling that animal control role as well right now. 2017 was kind of a transitionary year. The neighborhood services manager, former neighborhood services manager, had left the city, and code enforcement moved under engineering for a brief period in that transitionary stage. And then 2018, after Jim had come on, got familiar with the organization, code enforcement was placed directly under the public works director. Some of the current code enforcement needs and opportunities. This slide here really represents the nuisance code violations that we commonly address, and this is primarily under our current staffing levels what we're able to address, and pretty much requires 40 hours a week of a full-time staff member, and in the summer with the addition of weeds and trees, obstructing sidewalks, signs, sight distance issues, stuff like that, also requires a full-time seasonal role as well during the summer. A lot of the nuisance codes we address: weeds, trash, inoperable vehicles, dead trees, vegetation I put up there. That could include, trees obstructing sidewalks, streets, or other issues related to that. Dirt piles and debris. That photo on the top left there, that is a case I just cited last week where someone's slowly moving their front yard onto the sidewalk and street. So they're being cited to put that back on their property. And several other issues we have there. An inoperable vehicle, weeds, junk, trash, stuff like that. Not specifically nuisance codes, we also address graffiti, which is in the Title 8 section of the code. And MTC violations are model traffic code violations addressed in our code. That will include anything like parking on the front lawn, oversized commercial vehicles. If there's a semi truck in the neighborhood parked at a residential property, we address that. And then prairie dogs, we do have a few cases of that every year, and that's a relatively new code. I think it came in 2017. In addition to nuisance code violations, we also in code enforcement tend to address a lot of issues in the city that don't fall on a specific department. A lot of times people will call the police and say, hey, someone set up a swimming pool on city property out here. And the police say, well, that's not really a crime. And Public Works doesn't exactly know how to handle it either, because they fix streets, they fix water lines, lots of stuff like that, but they're not exactly sure what to do with the pool that ended up on their property. So a lot of times we'll step in and fill that role there where we need to write a letter, contact a resident. In this case, it was actually a county resident who set up a pool on city property. Other things like this abandoned truck bed, that's also was left on a city property, working on resolution at that. And then the donation bins there in the upper right corner, that's a case currently working on as well. That is on private property. However, those donation bins were not put on that property with the permission of the property owner. So instead of assessing heavy fines on that property owner, cases like that take additional effort to work with them to find a reasonable solution to get those removed from their property without necessarily finding the property owner to do that. Abandoned RVs are something we're coming across more often, just left near the highway on city right of way. And the trash in the bottom center photo there, that is on Denver Street, actually on the right of way as well. So that's currently an issue. I'm working with waste management operations as well to have their dumpsters removed from city right of way, because it attracts lots of trash and dumping that the city then has to deal with. And then shopping carts keep showing up in our neighborhoods, and that is also a service we provide, is to go and collect those and remove those from neighborhoods. In addition to all that stuff, we are still addressing sort of as reported or as issues come up, all the additional code requirements for zoning, land use developments, and lots of other violations that might be applicable on the left there. But there's still a lot more of this work that could be done, and I believe that it's work that's very impactful to the long-term economic development and sustainability of the city as well. A lot of these issues, the top left corner there is down the industrial park. Trash is actually still remaining from during the flood. A property owner down there smashed everything up, and we did go through the whole legal process with our legal staff and had a lawsuit and basically we came to a conclusion of that, but the property owner at that time was indigent and ended up selling the property. So we're now dealing with the current property owner, trying to get them into compliance with that issue now that we have a new owner of that property. A couple other issues in the industrial park. The bottom left photo there is actually an illegal structure that was built in a backyard many years ago, and the building department went through their enforcement process with that, but we're not going to get to any further resolution until we bring them into court and get a judgment on that issue to have that removed. And then the shed there at the bottom right, that one actually did meet setbacks, but it's a good example of the importance of enforcing accessory structure codes and meeting setbacks for structures or sheds and other structures like that. I actually did catch that shed and reported that to the fire department last November. It was on fire in one of our Evans neighborhoods.
So I'll just note here that many of these types of cases take more time, more coordination. They are land use code issues, many of them. What we're trying to do here is also create more capacity for Kyle to spend time on these, because if you don't have time to focus on them, it's easy to, they just can keep going and going and you don't ever address them. So that's one of the goals.
Exactly, yeah. When we show up to address something like weeds or trash, it doesn't really matter how long it's been there, but the reason is why it's there. It's just a simple getting a notice today, time frame to correct that, and if you don't, you'll receive a citation and then have the opportunity to appeal that citation. With a lot of these cases, we really have to start with, for zoning cases, for instance, in land use, really reviewing whether that is even a legal or an illegal issue to begin with. If the use was conforming with the code prior to current requirements that do not allow it, it may be a legal nonconformity, which is not actually operating illegally, and it would be inappropriate for us to send them a letter requiring them to change their business practice or whatever may be happening there. So, a lot of these cases do require a lot more documentation, a lot more working with the property owners, and also working with our legal staff for prosecution. In addition to additional staffing, I think that we have other opportunities in the neighborhood services department outside of just code enforcement itself. We're currently about the only neighborhood services program we provide in addition to code enforcement is the Yard of the Month program. And we do that once a month for 6 months during the summer, so May through October. And that program is very well received. Every time we deliver that award to a resident, they're usually very happy. We've had people call our supervisors and let them know how happy they are to have it. I've seen people post on Facebook. They're happy to receive that award. And then I've also just received feedback and letters at our office about that as well. In addition to that, the city cleanup events, they're currently really run under our operations department. So streets, water, all that. They currently work with waste management to set up dates, set up the requirements that we need for that event, service levels, scheduling, the waste hauling and all that sort of stuff. And I have been involved with the city cleanup events for probably the last few years, trying to start make some improvements there. We did start taking cash at the event instead of just vouchers. So when people would show up, they forgot their voucher or they need an extra voucher and it's the last weekend of the event, with an ID, we're able to sell them a voucher at the event and they're still able to participate in that event. Last year, we also began for the first time taking tires, waste tires, for a fee. Basically, we're charging at cost of what it costs us to have a waste tire recycler haul those off and turn them into different products. And I think last fall we received about 800 or 900 tires, and this spring event we received about another 600 tires. And people were paying for those tires about $2 per passenger tire, almost $7 for a passenger tire with a rim, and up to even like $20. And some people were paying $20 for larger semi tires that they had just sitting around on their property. In addition to that, what I'm proposing with the Neighborhood Services Department is to take on management of the city cleanup events entirely in the Neighborhood Services Department, and run that as a neighborhood services program. We can advertise that to our residents, make sure that people are aware it's coming. We could even send out information with that in our notices for, trash and brush violations, stuff like that, and let people know of their options and resources to get rid of those items. Some additional programs that we could implement with some additional capacity and staffing. A pretty common and popular thing cities are doing, in fact, Fort Collins just initiated this in 2019 as well, is a block party trailer. A lot of times cities will get the materials, the trailer, tables, chairs, coolers, a lot of stuff donated, and assemble a trailer that has all those supplies in it, that is available to be checked out by city residents to host a block party. Could be for neighborhood night out, could be for just a neighborhood meeting, or even like neighborhood watch programs and stuff could use that to set up and host a meeting to meet their neighbors and really build some community in their neighborhoods. Some additional ideas that people are doing, the citywide garage sale day would be one of the easier programs to initiate initially, but really kind of try and get people to advertise a single day of the year where folks in Evans all have garage sales, which attracts people to come from Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland, a lot of areas around to have that on a single day.
You do that the week before the cleanup day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea.
And then as the sign right in the middle, or the picture in the middle down there, you see that Evans did used to have an Adopt a Street program. And that has not been in operation since I have, in the 6 years I've been here, but that is a program that I think would be, have a lot of value in working with local businesses and communities, churches, people who are interested in showing some pride in their community, adopting a space, and potentially getting their name on a sign for a little additional recognition there. The photo on the bottom right there is actually, that's our July 2019 Yard of the Month winner.
Household. That's the gentleman that owns Zapatos Sin Fronteras. Yeah, Caesar.
Yeah.
I was like, that looks familiar.
So that leads us to the question, where do we go from here? How can we accomplish this? As Kyle mentioned, right now we're staffed with one full-time equivalent staff person in Kyle, and the funding for a seasonal position, another 40 hours a week for 6 months. What we can do, what we're offering to provide for the city, is a minor upgrade to a neighborhood services manager position for Kyle, the addition of a code enforcement officer, one FTE, and then continuation of the seasonal code enforcement officer program. Next. So as far as revenue and expenditures, you can see the current cost of the program. What we believe conservatively we can do is adding about a third, again, of the citation revenue. Right now it's bringing in around $100,000 in citation revenue. Adding a full-time equivalent position, we're very conservatively saying we can budget about $33,000 increase in citation revenue, along with finding about $33,000 reallocated from other department accounts. We're not fully expending the seasonal funds every year. It's difficult to have someone on board all 6 months. Usually they start somewhat into the season and may go back to school in late August instead of completing September and that sort of thing. So there's some funding there. So $33,000 of additional citation revenue, $33,000 of additional reallocated funds within the department, and $3,000 of new general fund infusion will cover the cost of adding this FTE, and we believe kind of giving a jolt of energy, vitality to this program, both in terms of nuisance abatement, the zoning and building code types of violations that we're seeing, and those neighborhood services programs, if that's what council is interested in. We'd like to recommend that to you. What we need tonight is just your direction to include this as part of the budget discussion. We'll bring this back to you during budget season. It's basically a net $3,000 increase in the general fund contribution.
That concludes our presentation.
I am for this because this is part of what we prioritize and we envision for the city. I think by adding another person, it'll help with the pride that we want to also generate and create within the city. Because it's important to keep it clean, keep it nice, being able to, again, in a sense, by default, beautifying the city because of adding another person that can assist you and allowing for the city to go out and make sure that everyone's kind of following code. So I am for this and I'm excited and I like that neighborhood program. So,
I'm in favor of it. I mean, I believe that will take some of the workload off of you, especially,
Agreed.
after the season ends. I mean, I know it slows down, but that gives you an opportunity to focus on other priorities and allows that other person to shift to those, items that, are not, it's still a priority, but not up there with those others. But I think it's a great idea. I mean, for the cost of it, to have somebody here full-time, two of you, the increase in revenue that we would probably get anyway from the increase of citations will definitely counterbalance it as well. So I'm definitely in favor of it.
Other comments?
I seen Kyle when he first came on board through the Citizens Police Advisory Board, and the difference in the previous 30 years of so-called code enforcement and what Kyle has accomplished since 2013 is just amazing. And I think Mayor Altshuler was the one that first wanted to try to get some of this stuff, code enforcement in the city cleaned up to keep it from looking like a blighted area. And Kyle has done that, has accomplished much in this 6 years. And I fully support him on this.
I think it's a great idea. I think getting a heck of a bang for your buck for a $3,000 increase on the city. I think that's a heck of a deal, and I think it'd be a great way to clean the city up even more. So I'm all for it.
I would like to see some of your stats after this is implemented. Poor Kyle has probably heard from me probably more than all of you guys put together. So I do know how stretched he is. And if you can certainly keep your hiree in as good of a position as you are with what you do as your service, I think that we would be in super shape to win the seasonal. So I am very excited to see this happen.
So it could be two full-times and still have the seasonal. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I too think it's very advantageous. I'm a firm believer in training your replacement. If you won the lottery tomorrow, I'd like to think you would stay here. But if you chose elsewise, it's always nice to have somebody. But beyond that, it provides, it allows you to function at your brightest and best, which I think is great. So thank you for the service you've provided. I look forward to this. I would say I'm most excited about the neighborhood services, the potential block party trailer, that sort of thing. I think code enforcement is super important, but I also think having that neighborhood vitality is also really important. So having those added services are exceptional. I appreciate the hard work. Thank you.
I think that's a definite yes from council to go ahead and put that in the budget.
Bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back to the budget.
let's bring back the pride and beautify our city.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Kyle.
Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Next item on the agenda is the 2019 organization work plan update. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the things we do every year in January, February is to set some goals for the year. The way that works, staff, after hearing from council in some of our meetings, brings back to you a recommended work plan for the year. And then that's kind of my marching orders. So we're a little past mid-year, but I still wanted to bring this to you for just an update, opportunity to hear where we are with some of these goals. We still have some months to go in the year. I think we try to be ambitious with what we can accomplish, and I think for the most part, we're getting things done. Also, this is a good opportunity if the council as a whole has any alternative direction for me, things you'd like to see that aren't on the list. This is a good time for that conversation. And I will have a couple comments as we go, just about things that may be reprioritizing. I will try to move quickly. I'll try to hit on most things. Feel free to stop me, but I know we have limited time, and I will just try to touch on most, if not all, of these things. I will also remind council that the framework here is the updated vision that you set last fall, that Evans is a growing city with small town roots, providing a safe, family-friendly community. And then you also set some key performance areas, and purpose of those is really to say, okay, in order to achieve that vision, we need to be making sure we're doing these things. And there are a handful of them, and that's how we've organized the work plan. So we'll follow that order as we have the update. So under the first key performance area of having well-maintained infrastructure with the capacity to grow, we have our largest capital projects, I think most visible. Of course, we have a very large capital plan, but these were three that were worth calling out. The 35th Avenue widening, 31st Street at Highway 85 Service Road realignment, and then our 37th Street Utilities construction project. The first one, 35th Avenue, is nearing completion. If not this week, it'll be probably Monday, Tuesday of next week when that'll be reopened and finished. 31st Street, we are starting that one this month, within the next couple weeks. That'll be completed in October of this year. 37th Street Utilities construction, I'm sure that we've all seen that one. We all see that one a lot. Is a very difficult, complex project, but that one is on track to be completed still in November, just as the asphalt plants close. I think we'll probably need all of that time to get that one done, but it is moving forward.
I had Dean asked me a question on that, whether or not that was going to continue all the way to 23rd Avenue with the line replacement.
Yes, yeah. The eastern portion that we've been working and are close to completing has had more of the utilities, so water, sewer, and storm in some places. As we move east or west, it becomes more of a sewer line. There's more sewer than anything else, which should help us with our pace. We have had some difficulty with what they're calling sugar sand there, which has created the need for more trench reinforcement and has slowed them in some places, but we understand that they're optimistic about how they can move faster. But that will go to 23rd Avenue with all utilities needed. And again, the main goal, and we have to keep saying this because right now it's not a pleasant place for the public to travel. We know that, but the main goal is that we're setting up our overlay project for next summer, which will give us a virtually new surface there. We want to have that utility work completed before the overlay so that we aren't cutting into our new street any more than we absolutely have to over the next few years.
Thoughtful planning to prevent additional work.
Correct.
And expense.
Yep. Next item is we moved into our street maintenance and pavement condition objective. We have the goal to conduct a public information and engagement campaign. That's starting up again now. The council had a work session last week, gave us some direction. We'll be bringing more of that conversation back to you to put some detail on that plan, and we'll be starting our community engagement process soon for that process, targeting an April ballot measure. A council community building session. This is something I know we had talked about a number of months ago. I'll be working with the mayor and mayor pro tem over the next few weeks or month to set a session in the fall, just where the council can spend some focused time on kind of council member roles, within a campaign. How do we make sure that we've got support from key businesses and other residents, but doing a little planning before the campaign that we didn't do last time for council. So that's what that one is. We need to kind of find a date for that. And then again, facilitating council decisions, that's happening within the next few weeks. Refining our infrastructure standards, very important for us. We've been working over the last few months to update the engineering specifications. Now that we have our new city engineer on board and our engineering staff, we've been finalizing those. That will be coming to council next at your next meeting for consideration. Those will it'll be updated standards for all of our private and public infrastructure. Facilitate city council priority planning on future growth. Also at your next work session, we'll have an update on some annexation referrals that we've had from the county and some requests for annexation consideration, and also solicit council's direction on just some overall direction as we try to work on future growth planning with other communities in the area. So that's scheduled for your August 5th session. Next one, researching status of broadband, municipal broadband. This would be the utility approach to broadband, which is certainly an issue among cities in the area. Staff has been participating in some discussions with Greeley and Windsor about how those communities are thinking about it. It's something I don't think we don't want to be left behind too far as that moves forward. Jessica Gonifas had been kind of the point person on that. Frankly, with the streets and the other priorities that we have, the capital projects, I'm recommending that we stay in the game, we stay engaged with those discussions in the area, but that we also probably have more serious discussions about that next year once we know where the other communities are going and what some of those options are. And frankly, once we got to keep focus on the street maintenance and the capital projects that we have going now. That's one item that I'm recommending for deprioritizing for this year, but we'll still pay attention. Next, agreements. These are some of the calling them long-standing neighborhood infrastructure opportunities or disputes. Achieving agreement with parties on Tuscany non-potable irrigation. That's scheduled to come to you for your consideration at the August 5th work session. Agreement with Ashcroft Heights HOA regarding repairs to a drainage channel that had been kind of a long time issue with the city. We have council approved that agreement, and we're actually working on design and construction of those improvements now. And then we've also had some discussion with the developer of St. Michael's and parts of Grapevine Hollow, who installed the Ashcroft Draw sewer line at their cost with an understanding of reimbursement. Development has not happened at the pace that anyone had envisioned there, but we've been trying to work through agreements and payments and what's happened, and we hope to have some. We think that we're getting through that and having some better communication that we might not need as many changes to an agreement as we thought originally. Sufficient, secure, and affordable water supply. The main thing for this year was to facilitate council's decision regarding NISP participation. We have completed that step, although it is taking some time with NISP and some other partners within NISP who are also trying to adjust their participation to actually get where we want to go in terms of a lower level there. But we'll have more updates on that coming. Determine feasibility of water treatment partnership with Central Weld. Conversations are ongoing there. We'll have more. We'll have an update for council this fall there on where we are. And then public information to promote water efficiency and personal cost savings. You may have seen a couple of our videos and some of the information.
Don't be a hobby.
Yeah, that we've had in the water bill about that, and that will continue through the summer. Councilmember?
Finish your comments, Jim, and then.
For that one, I was about to move on, but
Did I understand you to say that there were other participants in this that were adjusting
yes.
their shares downward?
Downward and a couple upward, and NISP, the Northern Water, is trying to structure a fair and a good process for handling those. So we don't quite know. They're trying to kind of settle on who wants to do what, and then they'll move forward with that.
Thank you.
Next objective is improving our stormwater management plan. We, as council knows, we increased rates to make progress on this issue. The first one was to recruit, hire, and orient new stormwater staff. We have one, maybe two of our 3 positions, and we are getting more street sweeping done, and we're starting to move into more of the inlet cleaning. We're trying to find some money. We might actually use some of the money from the 3rd position this year of some savings to get some jetting going on those storm lines. But we'll have more of an update for council within a couple of months on that. Secure bond financing for highest priority stormwater capital projects. We're doing the groundwork for that. We'll have an update probably 4th quarter for you on where we are there. And then design for those stormwater projects, we're on track. The goal is to have design over the winter and spring, and then some of the first construction happening on those projects next summer. And finally, or next page, sorry, we are needing to come up with a plan for decommissioning the old wastewater treatment plant. We're still recruiting our wastewater superintendent. That's one of the key projects that person will undertake when they're on board. We have not begun that in earnest yet. Our next key performance area is that we want to have safe and desirable neighborhoods with engaged residents. Couple items there. Initiate a code enforcement annual report. That was what council heard a couple of months ago, and then also just tonight we had the council discussion for goal setting for enforcement for a higher level of code enforcement performance. Get more done. Next thing, a few police items. We have completed a study that we had some funding for actually last year. We're filling in some of the blanks. We think some context information for council on police facilities needs. We'll have that back to council here within a couple months. We have completed the installation of our new CAD RMS system. We have reinstated the Master Police Officer Program as we had set that goal. And the police department has been trying some new feedback channels and new ways of getting feedback on performance on how we're doing there. So objective next one is to foster a positive perception of Evans in the community, and Evans marketing plan to promote Evans safety, amenities, and quality of life. That's been kind of dovetail with our 150th anniversary. Some of the work that we're doing there over the next few months, you'll see more on kind of marketing parks and what Evans has to offer. And then community engagement plan to enhance connections among neighborhoods. This says communication, but some of that work has been shifted to the neighborhood services unit, and some of those things that you just heard about from Kyle are really what we're focusing on to enhance the neighborhood connections. Next area is family-friendly and attractive communities. We identified updating council on existing trail plans. The staff is completing the process of appointing the advisory board that council authorized to report to staff to advise on parks and rec matters. One that we thought a good orientation for that group could be parks and trails planning. So this fall, after that group has had a little discussion, we'll bring an update on trails for council. When we set these goals, there was more activity. The Chamber of Commerce had convened a group to talk about Riverside development. That group, those conversations in the community have fallen off for now. We think it's important, but in terms of our overall priorities, we have deprioritized that effort, given all of the other things going on. But it's not something we're forgetting about. Another key performance area is resilient local economy. This area just highlights a few of much longer list of, these are a few of those highest priority and most visible development projects that are in the pipeline that council will recognize. Want to make sure we stay on top of these. Solstice, which is also known as Peak View, that one is in progress. The development agreement, which is the most substantial piece that we'll look at there, make sure we nail down all the details, is scheduled for council consideration in either late August or early September. The Tuscany Corner rezoning request, that's scheduled for actually this evening. Second reading. Tuscany multifamily residential application. That's the one that just needs a site plan because their zoning is all set. Staff's working on that one. And then Commonwealth and Habitat for Humanity. We've also been continuing to work with them to get the details nailed down there so they can keep moving. Readiness for development, updating land use development submittal requirements. Our staff's working on that. You're seeing a little bit of that in an item for second reading tonight, which is reordering some of the land use code items to make them more intuitive and kind of make more sense from a best practice standpoint to developers. That's one piece there, and our staff continues to work on making those submittal requirements clearer for developers. Next item there is recruiting an economic development manager, which we have done. And she continues to both get oriented to Evans and also move things forward. We just released 2 weeks ago the RFQ, the request for qualifications for the Randy's Diner property on the highway. So we hope to have an update for you there within a couple months. And then others, as I just mentioned, the ERA properties. We do have some preliminary information back on what it would cost to demolish those buildings. There is some asbestos. We're needing the details on that before we can bring it back to you, but we'll have an update on that within the next few weeks. And then, as I mentioned, we are actively seeking partners for development of both of our sites, and we'll have more formal updates on that within a couple months. Moving through. Fiscally responsible government. That's one of another of those key performance areas. We like to think we do that in all things, but one specific deliverable for this year is the stormwater rate study. That's the one that we had prioritized for this year, particularly looking at the balance of our rates and our revenue between commercial and residential properties. So we have that study engaged. They're actively working on it. Jackie Trout's leading that effort, and we'll have an interim session, an update for council within probably a month and a half, and then that information will be folded into your utility rate setting for next year. Responsive city services. We're always looking to facilitate the updates on the municipal code. One of the main ones on deck for this year is looking at the administrative section following the reorganization of our staff. We need to go back and make sure that we're in sync with some of the details in our code with some of the positions that have changed. Convenience for citizens, high priority. implementing internet live streaming of our city council meetings, which, as you know, we've done. Ensure that the key communications from the city are available in Spanish. We're making headway there. We now have all of anything we mail out is also available in Spanish, with the exception of the annual report, which was going to be a significant cost. Our communications manager has been in touch with a couple companies in the area who do that translation. We're trying to make sure that it's accurate and cost effective. So the goal is there to not mail it out to everyone in Spanish, but to at least make sure that people know that it's available in Spanish at this point, and kind of develop that as we can identify the needs. Improve ease and navigation of functionality of the city website. We have started kind of some of the work with departments on that. I think we'll be more ready for a website redesign, which is a little more than what we'd envisioned here, but we'll recommend that for 2020. Enhancing recreation programs. We are establishing the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to advise staff. I know we're trying we have applications, and we're trying to find the right folks and get the first meeting to happen at the end of this month. We did we have a more formalized marketing and sponsorship package for our city events, and I hear from staff that we've been more successful with our golf tournament, and also as we look to Heritage Day, we've had some traction with that sponsorship program so that we're able to offset more of our costs through sponsorships. Last page, how we use technology to improve services. One priority for a couple years now is to really improve our data on our responsiveness to citizen requests for service. We're implementing now a software program that we're actually pretty impressed with, that will give us a lot of data, better data on what the calls for service are, the status of them, cut down on staff time calling each other back and forth, and we'll have data reports for council on what we're getting calls about and how we're doing in terms of responding to them. Municipal court software, that's been installed. Couple things here, cybersecurity recovery plan, big deal for cities these days. Our IT department has been doing a good job on training with staff, and we're finalizing that plan. Moving down to the last item, updating the emergency operations plan. We've been doing that. We will have a work session for council in October summarizing any changes to the emergency operations plan, as well as council's role in an emergency. I think that's important. And then finally, we do have ongoing training for staff in the community regarding emergency planning. That was a lot. Hope you can let me know if I went too fast, but I'd certainly love to hear any questions, or if you have any direction for me on any other items, be glad to take council's direction.
You said that you guys have some applications for the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. How many applications did you receive?
I don't know that number. We will get back to you with that answer, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll send that out in an email to council.
It's a pretty big priority list here, and I'm actually kind of impressed about the amount that's been completed or in progress. And I think you guys are making pretty good progress on a lot of the priorities we set back in the fall, and I'm glad you continue to work through them and provide us updates. So great job to you and your staff for all the work you've been doing.
Thanks. It's still July, still a little time. No, we update. We have updates every few months at the staff level on how we're doing, just to keep them all moving. So staff's doing a great job.
This is impressive. I am impressed just because of the time you've been here, plus the fact that we have new people, and people took on different positions. There's been a lot of vacancies, and to be able to get a lot of it done, and most of it in, close to completion or in progress. I mean, that's great. I mean, it definitely displays like your leadership and the fact that we have amazing staff and you guys are all great and do your part. I mean, this is exciting and, like I said, impressive. And thank you all for all your hard work. Thank you.
Councilmember.
I would echo that, Jim. I have seen what the work you've done before I got on council and how the city seemed to be moving forward very successfully. And I'm glad that you're gonna keep our foot in the doorway for that broadband, because I think that's an important issue with a lot of residents, because of many are, if they can afford the high speed, are paying quite a bit for it than what. So I think it's Longmont implemented their own plan, and it seems to be very successful and very popular with the residents over there.
I think we'll learn a lot from several cities in the area that are moving into that.
Tag on with Greeley and Windsor, or whoever develops a good plan. I think that'd be a good way for the city to go.
Questions or comments? I think you've done a great job, Jim, obviously. We'd still like to get a bunch more of it done, but like you said, there's still time to go, but the jump start you've gotten on it's fantastic. I'm the longest tenured member on council, and I can say in the years past, we haven't seen that much work get done in that short amount of time, so that's a fantastic job of you guys. That's great.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and we'll keep going.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Got a few minutes council discussion. Anybody have anything for the good of the order?
I'd be curious to hear from council members how the fireworks went in their areas.
I can't give the number, but I was at CPAC Friday, and I know maybe somebody in here knows the number better than me, but off the top of my head, I think there was 67 citations written by the police department, who I think it's a thankless job. I mean, you're never going to catch people. In order to catch somebody lighting the fire, in order to give somebody a citation, you actually have to see them light it.
Yeah.
If it just blows up, you don't get to go down there and write them a ticket. So I think they did as good a job as they can do, but I think that it'll never be a perfect way of doing it. Like I've said before, I'm all for the 4th of July on the 4th of July. So
I got some
It's the
feedback.
3rd and the 5th and the 6th.
Yes.
that get me. Those are the days that I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah, the same thing, or the times are the thing.
I got some
One
feedback from
I-
a resident. They were like, "Oh my gosh, the Evans Police Department was out there. They saw the
They were,
smoke
they
and they were
were.
following
They
it,
were,
and they
yep.
just everyone's like, what's gonna happen?"
Yeah.
Just staring. So it was great. I mean, just the fact that people took notice that the Evans PD was out, and they're being very vigilant and making sure that.
Well, and that's what I was getting at. They were vigilant and they were out there doing it. It's just so hard to catch somebody.
Exactly.
It's tough.
I think just that awareness though,
Yeah.
added a lot, which
Yep.
was great,
Yeah.
because I remember probably 5 years ago, no, I was working with Asher, so 3 years ago, on the 4th of July, I was in labor, so I was walking a lot. And there were so many fireworks, but I think just increasing visibility over the past few years, it's gotten
Yeah.
a million times better. And I'm like you, I don't mind it at all on the 4th,
Right.
but I noticed it was dramatically less thereafter, which was fantastic, so.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to say that I hope that next year, that we can step up, the, notices at least at Riverside Park. Some of you might not be aware that, a couple days ago, we did have a fire down there. That was by fireworks. And, every day there's people shooting off. I've got pictures of people shooting off, cannons, down there. So it just seems that since that's a location that's a little bit less out of the mainstream, that, we might be able to drag one of our, I think, we had previously last year our big, huge light up billboards that
Yep.
had said, fireworks
The
were
fine.
illegal, and this year I don't think that we did that.
Right. That's one point of feedback I have heard, and we'll do those for next year. Bring those
Buyback, by the
back.
way.
You can find it over here.
Message boards for next year.
Yes.
I mean, even I think considering that occurred, we can use that as a means to like advertise on social media, indicating like, hey, this happened last year. Let's be, like, with, city pride, let's take care of our parks. Let's make sure that we maintain them, and we need your help. And just utilizing that approach, because, it's a brand new park, let's keep it nice. It's very symbolic too, so.
Well, might be wanting back from about a 10 block radius, there seemed to be an increase. And most people seem to be fine, if they, were not setting off after 10 or 11 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
But, the guy setting off the big mortars at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning,
It's just,
we need to catch him and find him. And maybe he'll stop it.
Yeah.
All right, let's break. We got about 2 minutes.